to episode 3 of How I Disappoint My Parents. This is your host, Kayla. If you made it to episode 3, I am surprised. I applaud you. And I guess we'll get right into it. So, I was thinking to talk about a couple things, a couple life updates, because I'm unsure if these life updates will affect my recording and my posting and my social media presence. I suppose the first thing I would be referring to, I just got diagnosed with osteoarthritis and scoliosis, which, wow, isn't that a wake up call for everyone who has a bad posture under the age of 25? So, that's my newest diagnoses. I had gone to a rheumatologist. That would probably be a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And I had initially made this appointment because I kind of figured I had something wrong, but at the time when I had made the appointment, there wasn't any evidence of that. And by the time the appointment drew closer, there was also no evidence of that. It was just hearsay. That appointment was just me describing everything going on from my psoriasis diagnosis, to the pain, to all the doctors I've seen. And so they had ordered an x-ray and blood work for me to do. I completed blood work. Thankfully, I've done x-rays before, so I wasn't really bothered by it. And now that I'm thinking about it, I probably have a lot of radiation. I remember I think it was science class, that we went over, um, basically, I think we were tallying up all the instances where we may have been exposed to radiation. And it was kind of like a competition amongst all my peers, and it turns out the I guess how many airplanes you've been on kind of took the bag. Um, anyways, so I had gotten my blood work done and my x-rays at the same day, and then 2 days later, I get an email that shows me an email that has a file that shows me that I have, well, a spine. That was what the picture was of. It was my spine. And I had examined it a little further. I had sent the image to um, my partner, my cousin, my parents. I was doing my best to make jokes up until I saw the initial description. So whoever reviewed my x-rays kind of made some notes about like initial impressions, and they mentioned scoliosis. And of course they're speaking these technical terms, these technical medical terms. So of course I had to Google search this. So it did state scoliosis, and then the next description, which I would pull up, but I don't want to go through that file again. It was very laggy on my phone. The second description was the scientific medical term for bone spurs. You can Google that, or I guess I can Google that. So, if you don't know what scoliosis is, that could either be a bad thing or a good thing. Either you are uneducated or you don't have it. So, scoliosis is where the spine curves sideways, often resembling an S or a C shape. As far as I know, I think my spine looks like a C. Honestly, I don't know. Anyways, so that was the one diagnosis, which was scoliosis, well, the technical term they had mentioned. And then bone spurs, the other name is called osteophytes, and they are bony growths that can develop on bones, particularly around joints. Um, so osteoarthritis is what I got going on. There's another testing that they're going to do that they already ordered for me to do, which is an MRI, and they scheduled it for my right hand because, funny enough, 2 days later, after that rheumatology appointment, my partner and I made a case to really aggravate my hand. Because, and I should probably backtrack a little bit as to my initial symptoms, but I'll save that later, I guess. We aggravated my right hand to the point where it swelled, and that was one of the initial symptoms I noticed months ago. And I guess I just never made it a point to really use my hand or like move in a certain way to cause it to swell again. And honestly, it was just like flexing my wrist and, rotating my hand, and that's what did it. It blew up and it's been hurting pretty much since. So that was good and bad. But I took many photos. Of course, I needed evidence, and also I had a very hard time believing that my right hand was significantly more swollen than my left. So I needed not only evidence for the doctors, but I needed that for myself. So I ended up calling the rheumatology practice and described what had occurred, and so they sent an order for an MRI, got that scheduled. That's in 2 weeks. I've done an MRI before. It's not that bad, unless you have claustrophobia, which I don't, thankfully, because that would just be an additional problem on my list, and I can't have that. And as someone who did a psychology class on older adults and aging, I know what that means, and that's usually something like someone who's below the age of 25 shouldn't be getting that. That shouldn't be happening. But I guess I'm the exception. I guess I should say what this is. So osteoarthritis is a degenerative joint disease, and it's basically where the cartilage between two bones is breaking down, and the cartilage is the cushioning tissue. So eventually the cartilage or the tissue between the joints, oh sorry, as the joint between the bones, it breaks down enough to where you'll basically have like bone on bone, and it's a lot of pain. It's a lot of pain. And there's no cure for it. It really is just managing the pain and delaying the stages, because I think there's 4 stages of this disease. And hopefully, of course, don't know until the middle of July to figure this out a little bit more. But hopefully, I'm just in the first stage. And as I said, yeah, there's no cure. It's just delaying the subsequent stages. And part of how to delay it is to really, I think it's a lot of lifestyle changes. It is exercising a lot more, is eating healthier, because I think some type of foods inflame joints more or something like that. There's just a lot of more adjustments that need to be made in my life. So that sucks. And it's kind of extra like salt to the wound because over the last year I've been trying to be better, do better. So another reason why it is such like a blow to my self-esteem or reality. I don't know how to describe exactly. It's just affecting me very hard. And it's because I do a lot of physical work, and it's around the home. Now it's around the home where I'm cleaning and cooking, and I'm usually on my feet. I'm usually trying to be productive so I can make up for, I guess, being unemployed. And so having pain in your back where like all the nerves are, and it it seems like if I do too much, then I will have off days. And unfortunately, I know this experience a little too well. My dad, I think I've known him to have back pain pretty much 100% of my life so far. My dad is a big guy, and he had a really, really bad car accident on his way to work. I think I must have been 6 or 7 years old. Um, the accident was so bad he had to have multiple surgeries, and his, I guess quality of life has not been the same because he couldn't work. He couldn't work. Um, he got on disability, and he's basically was my stay-at-home mom, except he was my stay-at-home dad. Except he was my dad. And I think for the most part, I remember him pretty much always having like those on days where he's able to do a lot of things. And I think it's been within the last maybe 5, 6 years where there's probably multiple factors, but it seemed like there was more off days for him than on. He was just always in pain from his like feet to like his sciatica nerve to Charlie horses to his back. I think that my dad wanted to be more productive and involved and do all the things he wants to do. And for the fact that he's been in pain, especially when he overdoes it, it sounds like a vicious cycle to me, especially nowadays, but I won't go into that right now. So knowing that, I mean, like observing that, it sounds very depressing. I already have feelings of not doing enough and self-esteem issues with that. I don't know. I feel like a lot of things are tied in to not being able to do things because you're in pain. It's like very, I guess to me right now, it feels very degrading. Because especially I'm like 23 years old, I should be able to do things. I should be able to. And the fact that I'm getting like whammied with pain, as I said, it's like extra, extra salt in the wound. Um, yeah, it's like you're already kicking a dog that's already down. Yeah, in the last week or so, I've had so much incredible self-loathing because I'm on this journey of losing weight and I've made the most significant progress in the last 3 months than I've done in the whole year. I actually put my mind to it. And a week ago, I ended up like hitting my lowest weight um within the last year. And that pretty much all went away in a week, especially because I got in so much pain with my hand that I didn't want to do anything because it hurt. Sorry, correction. I wanted to do things, but I couldn't do things because it hurt too much. There's and I felt like the laziest piece of crap ever because there were so many things to do and I didn't feel comfortable asking for help because I always reason with myself, well, I'm not working, I should be able to do it. So I was really hating myself that I put myself in this situation to have a lot of pain and not be able to really do anything about it. Because I was trying to treat the pain. I was taking ibuprofen, I was icing it and heating it, and it didn't stay, it didn't get to a point past where I felt comfortable using it. Because if it felt just a little bit better, I was scared of doing activities to make it worse. Because when it felt worse, it felt really, really bad. So it's been a tough battle, and I was beating myself up a lot. Yeah, it's been a really, really rough 2 weeks. Anyways, switching topics because I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's too fresh. It's too fresh. Yeah, so my whole point of bringing that up, I think, was not only to let y'all know what's going on, but also I'm not entirely sure if I can bring myself to post or like be connected regularly, whether it be recording, posting, or even social media, because if I have a lot of off days, then I'm going to use my on days to actually get what I want done in my off days, which usually means taking care of the household. And if you remember from last episode, I do everything else before um, my hobbies and such. So I can't promise anything, I think, anymore. We'll see. We'll see. Stay tuned. And if you stay tuned and you don't hear anything more from me, well. Anyways, I actually wanted to talk about a topic that definitely will stir a lot of people if they listen. I'm very, very excited about this because it definitely is a conversation that is just so intriguing. And before I begin, I really want everyone to know that I am a kind and good human being at heart, and I don't think anybody deserves to not exist in this world. Who's already in this world, I mean, for the most part. So, actually, to begin the topic, I wanted to bring up biology and designer babies because this will tie into what I really want to talk about. So, I don't know if this is still in a curriculum. It has been quite some time since I've been in, I guess it would be middle school or maybe freshman year of high school, where we were talking about genomes and genetics and all that good stuff. And there was this hypothetical question on designer babies. And if you can guess it, designer babies really is a concept about how gene and gene expression get manipulated so that the baby that is produced has the features and characteristics um, that the parents want or whoever is needing this baby want. And the question was like, should this be possible? Should this happen? And I'm not really up to date with current news on if this is actually happening. I mean, it kind of is happening when you have donor sperm and donor eggs because you do get to see their characteristics and it's like pick and choose whether you want potentially a baby with blue eyes or like the height. So it is kind of happening. However, I'm referring to when they really like get nitty-gritty into, I guess, the sperm and the egg and just combine the correct um, DNA to get the baby that of your dreams. So I always thought that was pretty interesting of how, I guess, how accepting would we be if that existed? And it sounds very expensive, so I feel like only the very wealthy would be able to have this experience where they can, create your own baby. I think, yeah, I think it's very interesting to see if this ever becomes a thing because it's not like we're that far. We're not that far from manipulating the genome to that extent. Now, I think the question also is the morality of it. It's kind of like, well, if you are religious, it's kind of like, do you play God? And I always find that fascinating too. So that concept intrigues me. What do you think about the concept of designer babies? I think that's the best question I could ask. Anyways, my topic that I really wanted to talk about, aside from everything I talked about before in the last 30 minutes, is I came across this advertisement. Okay, this is kind of bad, but I get a lot of I get a lot of posts on Facebook on random topics and events, and honestly, news stations that I don't even live. Like I got a news station report, I think from a county in Kentucky, which, yeah, I don't think I have to explain any further. I just don't live in Kentucky. Anyways, there was this posting of a article about technology being used to take away the extra chromosome in the genome that causes Down syndrome. So we have this question where should this be done? Should we advance technology enough where we snip away extra chromosomes? And for in this case to remove the extra chromosome that is proved for children with Down syndrome to have. Sorry, I'm kind of giggling to myself because I know this is gonna spark so much stuff. If, of course, anybody who listens to, I think it would be if it can be done safely enough while the embryo, like if it can be done, and then if it can be done safely enough, then I personally don't see an issue with it. For someone, so I have worked with individuals with Down syndrome, and I'm not saying that those individuals shouldn't exist, but I am saying if we can prevent problems, we should. And no, I'm not calling the person with Down syndrome who's been born a problem. I am trying to explain that Down syndrome comes with other diagnoses, such as sleep apnea. Just like the way their and tissue is formed, they could be diagnosed with sleep apnea, and that is one of the more common comorbidities that children with Down syndrome have. And I don't think it's fair, in my opinion, to for a child to like have to have that issue just because someone thinks that like they were meant to be that way. I've worked with people with Down syndrome and love them. They definitely had interests and personalities, and for the most part, they're pretty cool to work with. I had one that had behavior problems, but that's another story that I won't ever get into because of personal identifying information that could be slipped. Anyways, I think if we have the technology to safely prevent it, why not? And I can tell you one side that would say, why not too? And I think part of it is like it's like God made this, and it like we shouldn't be changing God's plan. So there's definitely like a religion aspect of this, and not just Christianity. I think even in other cultures where it's like you should not be messing with a human body in any sort. Usually, I think it refers to organs, but that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. And that's great. Except if we're, I don't know, if we're talking about quality of life, such as like preventing sleep apnea, I feel like that warrants this adjustment of the chromosomes. But I do know is that I intellectual disability folks often have comorbid issues that greatly affect their quality of life. For example, a lot of the people I worked with had a severe gluten allergy. And or they had sleep apnea, and some of them chose not to not to even complete the testing, even though they had all the symptoms, because they, for whatever reason, isn't comfortable or refusing to get the sleep apnea test. I think it's some sort of sleep study. They choose not to do it for whatever reason. So they don't get the help they need for sleep apnea. I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a quality of life situation. And unfortunately, in my opinion, there will be people against it, which it's fine. Like, we can have difference of opinions. I think if we have the ability to prevent quality of life issues, why not? Why not? And this isn't killing a person. As I said, if we can safely do it, it's not killing the person. It is just making so that they will have as much as a regular upbringing as they can from the genome level. That's all. My opinion kind of seems harmless to me. Will this end up being expensive? Probably. Unless it just becomes a regular accepted thing, then maybe it would be affordable to everyone. I would love to hear arguments against it and for it. I would. I would be very intrigued what anyone has to say, as long as it's respectful. Because I will not have a conversation with someone if it cannot be done respectfully. And if you need to know, like, if this is a learning lesson that you don't know how to hold a conversation respectfully, then don't bother commenting or messaging me or letting me know what you think. Because I cannot entertain a discussion with those that are just simply disrespectful. I don't have the time for that. Yeah. So that was my interesting topic that I wanted to discuss. Not really discuss because it's just me, myself, and I. But yeah, I just want to pose that it's very interesting to me the scientific advances that are being focused on. I think I read an article kind of recently of bringing back the woolly mammoth, which is very fun to me because I did a persuasive essay on it in 5th grade on whether or not we should bring back the woolly mammoth. And seeing like more articles on it, I think about people actually really working on this and funding this. It's so funny to me. And not only because of my previous essay, but also because there's just, in my opinion, so many more important things to fund and have research on that simply isn't bringing back an extinct animal. That would mess up with ecology of the word, the ecology of the world anyways. I don't know. I honestly feel like there's anything better, like scientifically, to research and fund than bringing back the woolly mammoth. So unless you are really for bringing back the woolly mammoth, let me know and why. Yeah, it's just stuff like that. It makes me itch my brain. Like, why are we focusing on that? Why? So, if you know that reason, let me know. Otherwise, I think it's stupid. I think it's stupid. 5th grade me would love that. Me who sees the world in distress right now, I don't know. I don't know about that anymore. Now, if the world was boring, like there was nothing left for us to discover or fix or cure, sure, we have a lot of free time on our hands, a lot of resources on our hands. Let's bring them back. Let's bring back the woolly mammoth. Anyways, I rest my case. And if you made it this far, thank you for tuning into another recording of how I disappoint my parents. And that's about it.